The story begins in Transylvania, where a brave Romanian knight named Dracula goes to war against the Muslim Turks. After a hard-fought battle, Dracula receives the tragic news that his wife, Elizabetha, has committed suicide after being misled into thinking Dracula had died in battle. Heartbroken and filled with rage, Dracula renounces God and is consumed by darkness, becoming immortal. He drinks blood from a cross after piercing it with his sword, cursing God and embracing the power of darkness. London, 1987. A man named Renfield is confined to a mental asylum, obsessively speaking of his master. Jonathan Harker, a young lawyer, is sent to Transylvania to assist Count Dracula with legal matters. Jonathan is engaged to Mina, and they plan to marry upon his return. Dracula arranges for a carriage to pick Jonathan up and warns him about the dangers of the journey, giving him a cross for protection. Upon arriving at Dracula's castle, Jonathan notices its eerie, ominous atmosphere and is greeted by the Count himself. Dracula is a strange figure, never eating or drinking, and has a mysterious fascination with Jonathan's fiancée, Mina. Dracula shares a picture of his ancestors and their sacrifices for Christ, but Jonathan laughs, causing Dracula to lose his temper. Dracula apologizes, but insists Jonathan stay for a month and help him with legal matters. Jonathan realizes he is trapped and begins writing letters to Mina, assuring her of his safety. Meanwhile, Mina Bach stays with her childhood friend, Lucy, who is courted by 3 men: Arthur, Dr. Seward, and Quincy. Lucy's flirtations cause tension between the men, while Mina begins to have disturbing visions of Dracula. Dr. Seward is investigating Renfield, who has become obsessed with insects, believing they give him life. Renfield's madness grows as Dracula prepares his plan to move to London. Dracula begins sending mysterious crates to London, and Jonathan becomes increasingly suspicious of Dracula's intentions. He explores the castle one night, where he is attacked by Dracula's 3 brides, who attempt to seduce him. Dracula intervenes, claiming Jonathan as his own. As Dracula prepares to leave for London, he offers his brides a newborn child to feast on. Back in London, Lucy's health declines, and Dr. Seward calls upon Professor Van Helsing, a doctor who is knowledgeable about the occult. Van Helsing realizes that Lucy is under the influence of a vampire, likely Dracula. Despite Van Helsing's efforts, Lucy grows weaker. Van Helsing continues to investigate Dracula's dark powers and begins performing blood transfusions on Lucy. But it is clear that Lucy is becoming a victim of Dracula. Dracula finally arrives in London and assumes a normal human form. He begins stalking Mina, introducing himself as Vlad, and attempting to form a bond with her. Meanwhile, Lucy's condition worsens, and Van Helsing suspects she is a vampire. Dracula continues to drain Lucy's blood, and she becomes a living corpse, her soul trapped by his curse. Van Helsing and the others confront Lucy, and to end her suffering, Van Helsing drives a stake through her heart and decapitates her. With Lucy dead, Dracula is enraged and vows to claim Mina for himself. Mina, meanwhile, is drawn closer to Dracula. She begins having dreams and visions of him, realizing the truth about his curse. Mina also begins to show signs of vampirism. Van Helsing and the group understand that they must stop Dracula before he turns Mina into a vampire. Mina and Jonathan are reunited and married, but Dracula's hold over Mina remains. He attempts to seduce and transform her into a vampire. Van Helsing and the group begin their search for Dracula, tracking him to his castle in Transylvania. They realize that Dracula has multiple coffins hidden around the world, and they must destroy all of them to prevent him from finding refuge. Dracula's brides attempt to stop the group, but they are killed in the battle. The group finds Dracula's castle, and in a final confrontation, Dracula tries to escape by turning into a swarm of rats. However, he is cornered by Jonathan and the men. In a desperate attempt to flee, Dracula transforms into a wolf, but he is ultimately stopped. Mina, now fully under Dracula's spell, tries to assist him, but she is freed from his influence when the men confront Dracula. With his power weakening, Dracula's fate is sealed. In a final act of desperation, Dracula dies, and his soul is released from the curse. As Dracula dies in Mina's arms, he asks her to end his suffering. Reluctantly, Mina stabs him in the heart, bringing peace to his tormented soul. In the end, Dracula is defeated, and Mina and Jonathan, free from his influence, begin their life together. If you really love recapped movies, then subscribe RecapQ for more interesting movies.